Hello, everybody, and welcome to Avenue Thailand. I am Coach John, and I'll be your host for our interview today. Today, we will be talking about the recent Asia Schools Open British Parliamentary debate. Wow, those are a lot of words for a name of a tournament, huh? And today, we are blessed to be joined by the champions for the under 16 category. We have Miss Proud.
Hi.
And we have with us Mr. Burger.
Hello.
How are you two doing today?
We are doing good.
Yeah. Just a little bit of background for our audience at home about the tournament. This tournament was hosted on the 26th and 27th of August. It had 81 teams from all over Asia Pacific. And here with us are the champions for the under 16 category. When you guys registered for this tournament, it was quite last minute. It was in the final hour.
It was in the final hour.
So Proud, what triggered you to want to sign up for this tournament in that final hour before registration closed?
So I've always wanted to do Asia Schools, like British Parliamentary. I feel like this competition, I saw it like a week before registration closed. So actually, we were going to sign up earlier and I was talking to Burger with it, but we're both a bit busy. But then I was like, you know what? This is the last day. You know what? It's the last hour. I better sort my stuff together. So I called him. I was like, okay, we're both coming to this, right? We're sure about this, right? Burger was like, yeah, we're sure. So we both decided, you know what? We're going to give it a shot. So I was like, typing. I was texting Edu Drift to Facebook, and God bless the coordinator for replying. They had like a 2 to 5 minute response rate. And I was like, whoever that is, God bless you.
Okay, so Burger, what made you say yes to team up with Pro?
I wanna get more experience in terms of debate. So I said yes because this is a relatively not busy part of the year for me. So I see an opportunity to go debate and I took it.
Yeah. This was an online tournament as well, which is quite unique, quite interesting. Probably from the COVID times, we used to have a lot of online tournaments, and then we went back to physical, but we still have a few online tournaments. What would you say, Burger, is like the difference between an online tournament and a physical tournament?
I think you obviously probably get more from a physical tournament because you are interacting with people face to face. It's more of an experience, if you will. But I don't think the disparity in what you learn is that great between online and in person, because obviously adjudicators online still give really good feedback. There's not really a difference between that and adjudicators in person. So I think if you want to meet more people, if you want to kind of get the whole debate experience, in person is obviously better, but the disparity between what you learn is not that great.
And if the objective is to learn more and to grow and improve as a debater, online tournaments might be a good opportunity to do that as well, right? Proud, do you think that compared to in-person tournaments, is the intensity and the pressure and the excitement of debating in the rounds, is it different in online, or is that also quite at par with in-person tournaments?
So I think online tournaments are definitely less. I think there's less intensity within the rounds because a lot of people wouldn't open their camera, and I feel like when you don't see people face to face, you just tend to you tend to be less hyped or less scared because there's less of an intimidation factor. And I also feel like when it's online, a lot of people feel more comfortable to talk and they're more easygoing. And also because there's less risk. I feel like people don't really get the whole atmosphere like Burger mentioned. I think if you're looking for the experience, definitely in-person tournaments are better. But I feel like if you're looking to train, I think online tournaments are a lot more convenient to go to. And they're really, I feel like it's really a good training ground.
Yeah, and if you make mistakes and stuff, your camera is off.
Yeah,
People don't know what you look like. People don't remember who you are. Besides being the champions, congratulations. By the way, congratulations for being the champions for the under 16 category for this tournament. What were the other categories, or what was the flow and layout of this tournament generally, if you could tell us about that, Press?
So the flow and layout of this tournament is they had separate categories for basically the region you came from, and there were U15, U16, and then U14, which I think is very good because I think a lot of tournaments don't really have categories for younger people, and I think it can be really challenging. when you're like really young and you come into a room debating with like a bunch of like 18, 19-year-old college students who are like bringing in like big vocab, and you're like, yeah, no, I've never heard of this. So I
So
think
you've debated against college students in
Yes.
tournaments before?
I have actually.
You have as well?
I have not.
Oh, okay. So let's hear your experience debating against what tournament was that?
It was my first tournament with college. Actually, it was a VP as well.
First tournament
Yeah,
ever
it was
against college. And how
against
old were
college
you?
kids. I was like 14.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
That must have been scary.
that was really scary.
Speaking about, you mentioned BP, that tournament was BP.
Yes.
This tournament, the format was also BP.
Was also VP.
And for those who don't know, BP is short for British Parliamentary, which is one of the formats that we have in debating. Burger, maybe could you tell us or explain a bit to us what is British Parliamentary and what makes it British Parliamentary format?
Okay, so BP debating, the main difference I'd say is there are 4 teams instead of 2. And even if you're on the same side, even if both teams are on the government bench or the opposition bench, your job for your team is to justify why your arguments are better than the other side, but also have more weight in the debate than the other team, which is on the same side as you. So in BP, there is PM, DPM, who form opening government or opening opposition. Then there is government member and government whip, or government or opposition member, government or opposition whip, which form closing government or closing opposition. So there are 4 teams. So that adds complexity. And I say you're successful in BP if you're good at weighing and justifying why the points you have made are better than the points the other teams have made. Yeah.
That does
bit
sound
convoluted.
very complex and confusing.
That was a bad explanation.
No, you did well, I think, but in the format itself. But would you say, Proud, which format is more difficult? Is it British Parliamentary, or is it the World Schools Debating Championship format, or is it Asian Parliamentary? Which one's like your favorite if you could rank them, and like why?
Okay, if I could rank them, I'm so sorry, but my favorite would be like right now AP, because I can actually choose the motions. I think that's a really interesting thing about AP. They'll give you like 3 motions, and like each side can veto one. So you'll most likely end up with like one motion. I think that's very interesting because in world schools you can't really choose. And my second would probably be right now it's world schools and BP is last, which is really ironic because I do the best in BP, but I like it the least. I'm like, you know what? Maybe I should switch my ranking, but I like world schools more because I'm personally like more experienced in world school and I've done a lot more world schools, and I feel like it's like easier for me to set up things because in world schools I set something up, I just present it.
But this isn't your first BP tournament, right, Burger? You've done a
Yes.
BP tournament before. That was the Cambridge Asia British Parliamentary Debate Competition. That was your first
Yes.
tournament, was it?
Yes.
So can you like compare your first tournament experience at the Cambridge Asia British Parliamentary Debate Championship? All these tournaments have very, very long names.
Oh yeah.
But okay, so CABP, that was your first tournament,
Yes.
versus now ASOBP, where you became the champion, right? How is that difference of experience between these two British parliamentary format debate competitions?
So in my first tournament, CAVP, as you mentioned, I was very inexperienced. I was 2 weeks into debating. And at that point, I was doing with Ken, but shout out to Ken. Woo. Okay. So I was doing it with one of my friends, Ken, and we were both relatively inexperienced. So, I mean, but I think I learned a lot from that experience, and a lot of like the OAs and the feedback from the adjudicators really helped me. But obviously, I think the main difference was I didn't really know what I was doing in that tournament as opposed to this tournament, where
He's driving.
I'm thriving more. I'd say even in this tournament, there was a progression from like the first day. I didn't really understand BP that much because I hadn't done BP after that first tournament, which was like 6-7 months ago. And yeah, I think even in this tournament, I gradually learned, and like my weighing and my BP strategy got better throughout the tournament.
Yeah, I guess that just goes to show that just because you don't do really well in your first tournament, you definitely should not give up. After a CABP, you did a few more tournaments.
And learned with Point Avenue, by the way.
Yeah.
I didn't say, they said it, they said
I
it,
said it.
right? And now you're finally a champion, but you were a champion together as a team, but you also won individual awards, right, Burger?
Yeah.
What were the individual? There were 2 individual awards that you won. What were they?
I got the best speaker from Thailand. Given there was only one team from Thailand, which was our team. So it essentially
Cut that out.
that award is commemorating the fact that I am better than proud. And second off, I won
Count.
9th best speaker from Southeast Asia.
Okay, ninth best
Yeah.
speaker from Southeast Asia. Wow, okay. Yeah, and you were also the finals best speaker, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. You've been with us for quite a while, right, Proud?
Yeah, I've been here for a decent amount of time.
How many years has it been that you've been in Point Avenue classes? And what was your first class? Like, what were the classes that you've taken throughout this period, if you could remember?
Okay, so judging from my memory, I'm not exactly sure this is the correct timeline, but I started in about like maybe a year and a half ago. So the first class I took was debate beginner, and then I took debate intermediate, and then I took debate, what was the last class called?
Debate.
Advanced. Yeah. Basically, I took like the stepping stone. I took the proper stepping stone, and then now I'm in debate all-stars. So probably like, if I'm not wrong, maybe like 3 classes with Point Avenue. And this is my 4th course with Point Avenue.
All right, yeah, from beginner all the way to all
All-stars.
And now you're an Asian Pacific level champion for the under 16 category. Truly an all-star that we have here. Speaking of being an all-star, besides the classes, were there any other extra preparations that you made for this tournament?
Okay, so for me, the extra preparation was that I was competing, like, I feel like in this, like, time period, like, these past 2 or 3 months, I've been competing more. So I feel like I definitely use some of the feedbacks that I get from other, like, competitions that I go to, which also supported by Point Avenue, by some of them, by the way. And also because of, like, debate classes, I feel like in class, generally, like, sometimes if I need additional help, the coaches here are pretty helpful. Like, sometimes they'll send me, like, YouTube videos, like Say will send me like a debate video and tell us what he did for me in Burger was for when we're preparing for another tournament, AWSDC. He sent us videos we could look at and like maybe try to like track and help us like use as model arguments, which I think was really helpful. And another thing I do to prepare for these tournaments like individually is I try to get enough sleep and like drink a lot of water. I feel like that's something that people often like neglect, but I think it's really important to keep your head like in the right headspace. And also, I try to like read up on international relations more, as pointed out by my teammates. That it's a very important thing.
Being a champion is not only about the academic side of things and learning the skills, it's also taking care of yourself.
Yeah.
Giving yourself enough rest, eating enough food, drinking enough water, right? That's what brings you to become champions as well. Speaking of taking care of yourself and preparing for competitions and international relations motions as well, surely there was a particular motion that was especially difficult in this tournament. Maybe Burger, you could share with us your experience on like what that motion was and how did you guys deal with it and overcome that challenge?
Okay, so I don't remember exactly. I just remember we had an argument about case setup, and then we resolved it way too late, so we couldn't really write our speeches to the quality that we should have. So that I think we got 4th in that debate, so it wasn't great.
It was tough times. It was actually the moment when we feel like maybe we weren't gonna brace, because at that point, like on the first round we were doing really well, but gradually towards like the near end rounds we were doing like pretty bad.
Yeah.
So like me and Burger looked at each other and we were like, okay, you know what? If we don't recover from this, we're not recovering. We're gonna be done. So I was like,
Yeah.
oh my God, God help me.
That's quite the emotional roller coaster throughout the tournament. And I think in a high pressure situation like that, it can be quite easy to want to give up or to want to like just forfeit rounds and stuff. What do you think, Proud, would you say is what keeps you motivated to go through the rounds and even after you get a fourth in a round to, okay, have a clean slate and keep pushing and do better for the next round?
So for me, I feel like the most important thing is having a good mindset. Like I feel like when you debate, you have to debate with the mindset of not like really dependent, like have your happiness or motivation being dependent on winning or like breaking at every tournament. Because I'm sorry, but like most of the times you're not gonna get that every tournament. And if you do, then great for you. But I think in generally when you start out, you're not always gonna get that. And I think it's just to accept that, okay, let's just do our best. Like if we don't break, we don't break, but let's do our best. Like let's step in every round with the mindset that like, okay, you know what, I'm gonna ace this, I'm gonna do great. And if I don't do great, then at least it's a good learning opportunity because you like debating and you get to debate. And I think that's already a good thing on its own. I feel like that's the mindset that keeps me going.
That is definitely a great positive mindset, displaying character first as the pathway to excellence, which is the motto that we have here at Point Avenue. Speaking of, this positive mindset and pushing forward and keeping it going, Burger, maybe you could tell me like what would be a tip that you could give to people, maybe it's their first tournament. What would you advise them so that they are able to survive and push through until the end of the tournament?
I think in terms of your first tournament, very important, ask the adjudicators for personal feedback, because I think the OAs help you to a certain level, but I think the personal feedback can strike at more core issues in your debating. I think if it's your first tournament, just go into it with the mindset that you're trying out this new activity. Like, I don't want to discourage people from debating, but I think in terms of if it's your first tournament, view it as an opportunity to try out debating. If you don't like it, there's really like no pressure, you can drop it. But like, it's just you trying out a new thing.
You never tried to
OAs.
No.
Yeah.
Speaking of OAs, maybe could you explain a little bit to maybe those who are not really familiar with debate lingo? What does OA mean?
I believe, according to Podge, it means oral adjudication.
Yeah.
Correct? Yeah.
Adjudication.
Name dropping Podge, who was my first teammate, by the way. Hi, Podge.
Right. So what is an oral adjudication, if you could explain it a little bit?
So an oral adjudication is basically when the adjudicator explains why they ruled this, is that the correct term? Why they adjudicated a certain way at the end of the debate. So they'll explain why, for instance, like closing government before closing opposition, and they'll explain the rankings in world schools. They'll explain why they choose prop to win over op or op to win over prop. So it's basically the person judging explaining why the result of the debate is the way it is.
I see. So it's an explanation on the verdict or the results of the debate.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Great. This tournament had 81 teams from all across Asia Pacific, including New Zealand, including Australia, China, Hong Kong, Korea, and all of these places.
Wow, you've
right?
really done your research.
I did look up this research. I prepared for this. So 81 teams from all across Asia Pacific, from New Zealand, Australia, China, Hong Kong, Korea, and all these people from all around this region. And you became the champion for the under 16 category. What do you think would be like the most interesting team that you went up against?
I think there were two interesting teams that we went up against. There was one team from China, and I think it was very interesting because I feel like I couldn't really understand the way they like I feel like their arguments, I feel like it wasn't like the arguments I would usually run, but I feel like they run it so well. Like their structure is so good. So that really comes to remind you that sometimes it's not always about the argument you choose to run. Because for example, me and Burger, we had like a huge disagreement about how basically which case should we run? Because once, right, I wanted to run a more easy case because I feel like it would have been more easier to run. I think it would have been more convenient for the debate. But Burger wanted to run something more complex. But I guess going against a team like that and seeing them make it to finals with arguments that I wouldn't run, that none of us would probably run because they were just very interesting arguments in general, but because they were able to run it so well, I think it really goes to show that you don't have to be a certain type of debater to be a good debater. There's just room to be so many different kind of debaters, and it's all okay. Like, there's no like one path to victory. And another team that I was really impressed by is like there was two little kids. They're both little girls. I mean, actually, there was one little girl and another little guy, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they were both really young. Like, me and Burger was like surprised by how young they were, because they were like tiny, and they were sitting on a computer screen. I just thought that was such a cute thing, because I think it's so refreshing to see so many young people sending their kids to learn debating. So like, if you're young, like if you're a young person watching this right now, or if you're a parent of a young person, age isn't really a factor that's going to stop you from debating. And we basically lost to that kid in a round. So, like, that's it. That, like, little kids can rule in debating, and they might actually do really well.
So that's the lesson you learned from this tournament, is to never underestimate people because of their age.
Especially if they're, like, little children. That's even more intimidating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What would be a lesson or a main takeaway that you learned from this tournament that you think that you would remember for the tournaments moving forward?
I think this VP tournament really taught me that your impacts really rely on really good mechanization, because towards the end of the tournament, I really learned more about like BP strategy and how in closing op or closing gov, you can really easily just add an extra bit of mechanization. And if your opening half did not mechanize that section, which then would lead on to other mechanization that would lead on to the impact, you could really easily take credit for that. And I think this also applies a lot to world schools debating, because like the judge won't credit you as much if the mechanization is improper. So I think that this tournament has really taught me that like the basics of mechanization are very important in terms of debating.
Yeah, and hopefully you continue to think about it and continue to work on it, continue to improve on it for the future tournaments to come. I think that the both of you are a good representation of, I guess, what Point Avenue can do in terms of debating and what our students can achieve in terms of debating. You've been one of our beginner students a while ago. What would you say to our current beginner students or to future beginner students who sign up with Point Avenue? Maybe there was something that you used to worry about, but now that you've had a bit of experience, what would you tell little beginner Proud when she first started?
Okay, so when I first started, I'm gonna tell you that, like, I think this is like a common problem. At least it was in my first class. We were all going to our first tournament. I feel like a lot of us were really scared to go to a tournament because we were like, we're gonna get destroyed. Spoiler alert, we did get destroyed. But like, I'm telling you, even if you get destroyed, go to tournaments. Like, experience the whole debating experience. And even if you don't win, that's okay. Like I said, just enjoy debating as it is and just try to see if it's for you. If it's not, like, it's okay. That's a bit sad, but like, it's okay. You can find something else you want to do.
Yeah.
But an advice that I would really want to give is just that when you see these tournaments, they look really big and really scary, and you're going to meet a lot of really scary debaters who are really good, but just don't be discouraged by that and just keep going. And don't be scared to like step into like these competitions, even if you're new, because you're never going to learn as much if you keep only like studying in classrooms, because you're not going to get as much feedback. You're not going to get as much experience as much as you do in competitions. And at first, I feel like it might be a bit hard to find a team that works with you or find like a style that works with you. But eventually, I think as you progress, these things will work out. So I feel like worry less about that and just kind of keep going. And I feel like things will start working out for you. Coming to Point Avenue classes, the coaches really do push you because they make you like stand up on a little podium and they make you give a speech for like 6 to 7 minutes. And I feel like that's the kind of training that really helps you like grow the confidence to look at people, to like actually like make eye contact and to give a speech for a long time, to like stutter less and to just be able to really hold the room while you give the speech. So I think that really helps.
So Burger, what would be your golden words of advice for the young debaters out there who are just starting up and want to achieve what you have achieved, and as they look up to you as the champion?
They
what
do.
would you say to them?
I'd say one, go to tournaments. I think I probably learned more from tournaments than a lot more from tournaments than from like listening to like lectures in class or sparring in class. Obviously that's useful, but I think in the vacuum of a tournament, because there's this extra sense of competitiveness, I feel like you learn more. But also, I think there are a bunch of amazing debate videos online. Like you can watch like World Schools debates. You can watch. There's a lot of like BP debates. Like I think watching those and like taking notes on those and seeing how really good debaters build out their cases. That's something I did like periodically throughout the summer that I think really helped me in terms of seeing how other people debate and how like really good debaters set up their cases and like try to achieve their impacts.
Yeah, and with the right guidance and being pointed in the right direction.
Yes.
Find the right resources, right?
Yeah.
Of course, you still have to do some work on your own and to continue to improve. But I think coaching and guidance probably also does help as well.
Definitely.
That being said, thank you so much. It is great to have you guys here to join us today at Point Avenue. Oh, you want to go for a handshake? Let's do that.
Hey, Burger.
Thank you, Proud and Burger, for joining us here at Point Avenue, Thailand.
Thank you for having us. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
And that is all from us. Thank you. Goodbye. Okay, do you have maybe whatever other random stuff that you just want to say?
Shout out to Podge, great guy. Barrier MUN, great organization.
Shout out to Burger for actually being a pretty good teammate.
Shout out to Proud for being a good teammate.
The hesitation.
I was thinking about
The
that.
hesitation.
Maybe I needed to process the words. Maybe
You're dead to me, bro. Like, literally. You know, I'm replacing you. I'm gonna find, like, Podge or somebody else.
I'll find. Isn't he like busy?
Whatever, I'll find somebody else. Okay, like, the world is a big place, bro.
I can already see the outtakes reel.
We all got options, okay? Like,
You do?
I do.
For real.
For real.
Yeah.